This is Julia James Davis, and welcome to The War on Beauty. Where has all the glamour gone? Where is all the glamour? This is a question that I am faced with every time I open Instagram or a fashion magazine or tune into an awards show. It is so sadly obvious. Glamour is almost extinct in our society now. It is nowhere to be found, and especially not in the places that you would expect to find it the most. That is because glamour, and whether you have it or not, is related to ideology. And so none of these supposedly glamorous institutions have any sparkle anymore because they have been poisoned by negative ideologies and agendas, and most especially overt politicization. Everything now is so political. And instead of being about creativity and joy and beauty, all of our music, movies, fashion, and media push atheism, immorality, and basically just virtue signal. The reason that I care about this a lot is because glamour is just like what makes life fun and enjoyable. And the fact that it's nowhere to be found, honestly, kind of makes an important statement on the state of the West. The fact that we, the United States, are a nation in decline, and everybody, us citizens, are looked at as just like consumers to be talked down to, rather than people who are potentially creative and who should be inspired and prompted to strive for more. And glamour, just like beauty, matters. Think about all of the glamorous things, like Donna Summer's MacArthur Park, or the incredible old Vogue spreads by Diana Vreeland starring the beautiful Verushka, the old Bond films, or even the Art Deco buildings of downtown LA. All of this was just like pure glamour. It was provocative and edgy, but not unnecessarily or consciously contrarian, nor was it idealized or cloyingly pretty either. It just was what it was, which was creative and beautiful, fun and easy, and just a completely non-self-conscious way. Glamour exists in such a realm of its own, an eternal space where beauty from out of this world meets raw, sensual earthiness that is very much of this world. And glamour is such a powerful way to reach people, which is why those industries have attempted to use glamour to push an agenda. But as soon as that happens, all glamour then is just vaporized. Because glamour is a vision of truth. Just like beauty, it clicks when you see it. It feels like a breath of fresh air, and you can't exactly put your finger on what it is, but it's just perfect. It's just right. But also, glamour and beauty are slightly different. So while beauty can exist without glamour, glamour cannot exist without beauty. Beauty is the foundation of glamour. But also, interestingly, then, that means that glamour is in some way connected to the truth, because beauty is synonymous with truth. Which kind of leads me to my next question, which is, why was everything so much better in the past? Were those societies more based in the truth, or like what was it? Why has there been such a shift from beauty and glamour and quality to basically where we're at now, which is the complete opposite? Well, it's that the most glamorous times, like from the golden age of Hollywood to the awesome 90s runways, all of that still came from societies that had boundaries. They still had some form of moral codes. There were still no-nos and societal expectations around behavior, especially in the mainstream. Also importantly, there was more privacy and mystery around things, as social media and constant access to people and brands, just that wasn't around yet. But most importantly, I would say, is that creativity was actually championed back then. And in a weird way, while there were more boundaries back then, people actually had more freedom to create, because they weren't constrained by the fact that they were expected to push some political narratives. They were just free to make their art. So creativity, and therefore glamour, flourished in the past because people honestly just strove to create beauty. But really what has changed is that as the powers that be saw those creative industries like fashion and music and design, all of our entertainment and media, as a powerful way to influence people's opinions and thought, they decided to co-opt that glamour to promote their agendas. There's this book that is quite simply and aptly titled Propaganda. It's by Edward Bernays, who happens to actually be the nephew of Sigmund Freud, the famous psychologist, which is kind of interesting if you want to Google that rabbit hole. But basically, this book lays out the modern method of swaying the public's opinion and feelings through culture and products that we consume. It was not just through the obvious channels of propaganda like the evening news or the radio, but it was through less obvious things that propaganda started to be pushed out in modern times, like through fashion trends or beauty products like ivory soap. So what we're seeing now is our creative industries are being utilized to promote an agenda, but rather than an uplifting one like promoting family values or faith or patriotism, it's been the complete opposite, which is valuing self over family, worshiping absolutely everything except God, and hating your country. And it's really gotten to the point where it feels like every single thing that we interact with is making some sort of political statement, whether that be an ice cream carton or a car ad or even a starlet walking down a red carpet. And as I've mentioned in a previous video on counterculture, you need boundaries in order to be a boundary breaker. And there's something about glamour that is edgy. But interestingly, as they have broken down all boundaries in our culture and absolutely anything goes, there has been this inverted effect where there's actually less and less freedom to actually be creative and say something to the contrary. Because everything has a political undertone, it creates a hostile creative environment. And so if you look back at, like, for example, some of the great fashion shows or Vogue covers, those would never, ever be allowed to happen today. Nobody would ever even pitch the idea because they would consciously in their head censor themselves and say, okay, no, I'm going to be canceled for saying that idea. But those were some of the most iconic moments of glamour in our time. For example, think about how every influencer or brand is expected now to comment on absolutely every political situation or current event, etc., because of this extreme politicization of absolutely everything. And first of all, we obviously don't need to hear the opinion of like some shoe brand on a random current event or issue du jour, but if they don't issue a statement on it, then they'll be canceled. And so now it's actually so rare and actually very refreshing when a brand or an influencer or celebrity doesn't wade into politics. And it's really this culture that has formed, everything having some ideological, political undertone behind it, that has absolutely killed creativity and glamour. I think the absolute very best comparison and example for this is the new versus old Balenciaga. Back in the 50s and 60s, Balenciaga was the peak of glamour. It was not only so feminine and stunning, but it was also innovative and cutting edge. The non-traditional silhouettes, the dramatic proportions, and the absolutely stunning fabric. It was the perfect balance between femininity and beauty with edginess that just combined to be the epitome of glamour. Which, compare that to Balenciaga today, which outside of the obvious tarnishing of its brand through horrific campaigns and runways, they have produced, interestingly, collections that are actual carbon copies of old Balenciaga designs and presented them in the same exact way in this classic salon style. The thing is, though, is that even though these dresses and runways are the exact same copy and paste of the glamorous 50s and 60s designs and presentations, there is something absolutely not glamorous about it at all. Like, how is that possible? How can you just take something that was so glamorous and copy and paste it and then it turns out not glamorous? That is because it's the ideology and the people behind the work is what creates the glamour. And all of that has changed from genuine creativity and love of beauty and women to being purposely contrarian and venerating ugly. It's really just the love behind something that makes it glamorous. Because glamour is not about clothes or money at all. In fact, it can actually be the most down to earth thing. Because, like I said, there's something very earthy and raw about glamour. I think of, for example, John Galliano's Fall 1994 collection, which was a show that he did at the very beginning of his career. And at this point, he did not have any money to buy any special fabric, so he bought very basic black fabric off the rack, and he made the most beautiful collection, and he showed it in this old Parisian apartment that he got donated to him for free. And the outcome was like the most incredibly stunning, glamorous show and clothes you have ever seen. Because he was designing out of pure creativity and love for beauty, and I think too, a love for women. So glamour is really just truth mixed with something a little bit extra, something a little bit special that makes us dream and hope for more. It really cannot be manufactured. It can't be manipulated. Rather, it's something that just comes from the human heart. In conclusion, it might seem totally counterintuitive, but it's actually by bringing back boundaries and therefore more objective truth, along with some mystery, a little bit more or less oversharing, that glamour will return. And this honestly is such an elusive subject. Like, as I was thinking about this, and it's so hard to put your finger on what exactly has happened. We can all look around and see that there really isn't glamour anymore. Not in Hollywood, not in fashion, not in design. So what happened? And I think that I'm going to have to make this a multi-part series because I did not even scratch the surface on my thoughts on this, if you're interested, of course. But it's really such a multifaceted and kind of elusive thing that's hard to put your finger on what exactly happened. But I really do think that it's important because the end of glamour is very intimately tied with the end of beauty. And although both things ultimately serve very different purposes, I think that they're both important. I really care if glamour dies or survives. So I'm going to try to do my part by getting to the bottom of this kind of sub-war on beauty, which is the war on glamour, and figure out exactly what has gone on. So if you're interested in a part 2, please let me know. But I am curious, before you end watching this video, what is your favorite moment of glamour? Performance or a song, a music video, or fashion spread that you saw in your life that was like the most glamorous thing that left an impact on you? I'm very curious to know. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future videos, and I will see you in the next one.